with Renee.
Yo. We wait all week and all day for more. Saturdays with Renee.
Yes, greetings everyone. Welcome to episode 79 of Saturdays with Renee. Renee Johnston, Jared Ball.
What up?
Greetings. Please, everybody, like, share, subscribe on your way in. Put this in your socials. Good to see everybody. Oh, millennials in the building.
I know, right?
And they did. Who said it? Yeah, they did. They have I in general think all the shows are great, but they have been doing the most of the goodness over there.
I was gonna say, do they ever have a bad week?
No. No. And very, very often into subject areas and authors that are certainly outside of my immediate sort of line. So it's always nice to get exposed to other parts of the world and how they think, and just how a lot of radical thinkers are doing things, and a lot of radical academic. One thing I do appreciate is that a lot of scholars that don't get attention elsewhere, or who wouldn't be recognized within academia in the proper way, at least, get there. So anyway, yeah, always good stuff over there.
That's facts.
And thorough interviews, well-prepared interviews. Good morning. Good morning.
A lot of work, man. This stuff, I don't know if people understand. Like, even with this just being once a week, this is so much work. It'd be a lot of work.
No, I mean, I remember even just from doing radio, we used to talk all the time. People really underestimate how difficult it is to prepare even just one good hour of radio.
Right.
And then they start doing it, and then to do it every day or every week is a lot more difficult than people think.
Right.
So yeah, salute to them and to everyone doing that kind of good work.
And to you, because I dragged you onto a radio show yesterday and it went well.
It wasn't a drag. That was a great invitation. I have, I mean, the Barons, Inez and Charles, I've been sort of in the orbit of their work for a long time, listened to on radio, been to a lot of events and rallies where Charles was speaking. Yeah. It was, so to get invited there was very, very dope. And
it was good. It was a good conversation too. I enjoyed talking with them, and you did a good job of punting it to me and saying, don't be sitting there in the back being quiet.
Well, I mean, you have always a lot of important contributions to make. And then it did feel like at one point, I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, we don't have a lot of time.
Yeah.
And
we fit a lot in for 20 something minutes.
I thought we did very well. And I even, and my wife even complimented me in this, which isn't that it's rare, but on the specifics of being succinct and clear in a short space. I always struggle with that. So she was like, you did well. Good. On that one.
There you go. So, getting compliments from the wife. There we go.
But she couldn't hear because of the way we were set up in the car, which is something I just want to share real quick before we move on. But so she couldn't hear you.
Okay.
So she was asking me to fill in, like when you know, so she just heard me say, Renee, and then we were just quiet in the car. But yeah,
I gotta find the archive link, and we can drop it in so folks can go
thank you,
back
James.
and
Everybody follow his suggestion. And
give a
then
listen. Whatever.
millennials in here telling lies.
Whatever.
Jared out here lying. Um, but but just quickly, just before we get into anything very serious, if you don't mind, just a very quick first
Go
world
for it.
problem story, because yesterday was a debacle on our end of planning because we had never taken the electric vehicle past a work day, and we used it to go to Penn State yesterday, or we were supposed to take our daughter for her campus visit. Yo, first of all, Pennsylvania hates electricity, right? So the whole
Yes, it
state,
does.
you could it's clearly anti electric cars. There was and then the apps lie. We called, I had to get on the phone. So the long story short, we just didn't plan. We thought we had planned, but everywhere we were expecting to find a fast charger, we did not find one, or we
Oof.
found none at all.
Oof.
And in like in two occasions, the place we were supposed to be linked up with, we show up and the chargers either were never there, or they decided to put all of them all at once under renovation and leave nothing. So you just show up and it's like surrounded by police tape. So we were like, how are we gonna, like, because so we really were, it was like how we so we would have to, like, we were piecemealing it on slow chargers to get to one spot where we found this fast charger so that we could get enough to get all the way home. But the whole process, because of the wait times and all this, and it's stressful because you're in the car in the middle of nowhere, and that thing is 5%, 2%, and it's like, yeah, it was madness. So we had expected to be home well before 5 o'clock, and we didn't get home till I think about 10 o'clock. So
Oof.
it was
Oof.
a mess. So
Did
yeah.
she enjoy the visit?
Oh, absolutely. That part. And the other thing was, it was odd how it was very professional at Penn State, very well done. But oddly, just saying, all of the so-called world majority people of color ended up in this one group led by this diasporan sister who gave us a
Oh,
great
that was on
tour.
purpose.
I'm just saying, because you look in the
That
room
was on purpose.
and it's mighty, it's very white, and then
Yeah.
they call out the group numbers, and so say, I'm Johnny and I'm a junior and I'm number one, and then he runs off and everybody who's assigned that goes to find. And then she got up there, was like in group 3, and it was like the whole it was like the whole black world got up and
All the
walked into the,
non-whites come with
yeah.
me.
I'm just saying, it was, I'm just saying.
Uh,
Anyway, but it was great. I mean, she had a great time and is very excited about the idea of going there. But we definitely had to figure out some. And now, as a way to sort of segue into what we're going to be talking about, I again, we were amazed because, again, once you're out, Pennsylvania is very rural, very white, very working class, and worse off. And it was like in between here and Penn State was a lot of white poverty, and yet conservative, I mean, not conservative, Confederate flags, all, so it's like, although we did think, we thought there was fewer Trump signs than normal,
I mean, I don't know how
but
happy they are in Pennsylvania with Trump.
they looked not happy. It was
So
a gloomy day. It was a lot of, and the folks, we were waiting, charging the car, watching people come and go. It was like, it's a lot of poverty and a lot of ill health.
yeah, yeah, it's right. Listen, you have a lot of environmental stuff happening. You got a lot of joblessness happening.
Hmm.
I mean, it's Pennsylvania's rough, and it's a humongous state, so it's not like
Hmm.
a small amount of people you're talking about. Like you're not looking at like Rhode Island and looking at all the like it's a big state.
Yeah. So, it's like, it is wild to be thinking like how, in the immediate thought, of course, is how could you be voting for, well, any of them but Trump? How could you be, and then we were sitting there quietly joking, like they're blaming the people in this car for why they living like this. And that's part of the mythology that gets created to keep,
And
maintain some of this
sometimes I
confusion. But
wonder
yeah.
if that's actually. I mean, I know that's the case, right? That you have a large number of people who are looking to other people as the reason for their own misery, right? But I also wonder, like, do people look around and think like, yeah, this stuff is definitely me, right? Like this is definitely like a mess of our own creation. You know what I mean? Like I'm 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 curious. I do wonder about that sometimes.
No, I think you raise a good point, and I do think that there's I've read or seen a couple things where there's that similar, we're poor because we just can't get ourselves together, or we had a shot at everything and just couldn't get it. I think there's also some clarity around who are the actual culprits in terms of a class situation, even if it's not maybe vocalized in a certain way. But uh, yeah, I think you're right to raise. It can get a little more nuanced, etc. But yeah, but it was a stark difference between basically everywhere north of Baltimore to Penn State's campus. um, and you know, by the way, the other thing I just wanted to say just quickly is that Penn State's campus demonstrated perfectly about, I thought, on just a microcosm of how some things should run. For instance, free, constantly running bus transportation.
Hmm.
And I just thought how pretty neat this was, that relative to a lot of people's experience, it was just a matter of knowing which way you're going, and one or the other color of the buses is coming, the blue or the white, and you just get on one and just go to where you need to get, and it takes you basically everywhere you need to get.
Now, does it is it limited to on campus or
To the campus
do they
community,
like does it go outside of
like
campus?
to,
Like,
yeah, to like the surrounding, like the immediate campus town that's there. I'm not entirely sure what all the names are, but I think I think it went to that immediate little area where they essentially want to make sure the students
can
stay.
get
that's
around,
that's what
right?
I thought. Um but it was just, I just thought, as we got on, I'm just like, this is what it should be, and you just greet the driver. There's no exchange. It's already covered because so much money has flowed through here,
Does
that,
it? Do you know? Does it run? Is it 24 hours or does it
don't
stop
get me
at a
to
certain
lying.
time?
Don't get me to lying.
I'm just this is all
Yeah.
curiosity on my
Yeah.
part
I don't know.
because Syracuse
Yeah.
University also has a bus system and it also is free. You just get on. You don't have to. You don't even have to show an ID or anything. You just get on,
Yeah,
and it
nice.
goes,
Okay.
between because there's there's two different campuses. There's the main campus
Mm,
with all the academic buildings, and then there's the south campus with all the housing and the athletic buildings. And so there's a bus that go, but it stops at like 2 a.m. But you can also call once the bus stops, you can get a campus ride. Like they have a whole system set up, and someone in a car will pick you up and take you wherever you need to go on campus. So
mm.
I guess maybe it's just a bigger. I mean, Penn State is a humongous campus, so it makes
Yeah,
sense that they
they
would
have
provide.
multiple little, yeah. Hmm. Little
Right.
campus spots. Yeah, so it's like there's different campuses. So that, yeah, it's a big space. So, but no, I don't know. I'm not thinking about 24 hours. You know,
You not.
I know it runs till 8 o'clock at night. That's all I would need. And it's a wrap. It's a wrap. No,
Oh
but it
man.
was so that part. I mean, just those little things. I'm like, yeah, I get it because you know. So why I don't know why we can't just extrapolate this concept.
I mean, it seems to me that any place should have an allotment and an ability for people to just get where they need to go without it being a fuss, right? Like I never did understand like tolls and like all this stuff that there are enough people and companies and corporations and rich people making money that all this stuff could be paid for without you know beating up poor people for they like $2 and like every time I have to get on the train and it's $2.75, I'm like, what? Like, because I remember when tokens were $1, and my mother remembers when tokens were less than $1. You know what I mean? I remember digging out quarters to pay $4 to go through the Holland Tunnel, and now it's like $18. It's wild. It's wild.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I mean, again, we would think with all the money and wealth that's generated, none of these things should be put on people as they are encouraged also to do what they're encouraged to do, which is to travel, vacate, uh, uh, shop, and all of that has created so much wealth. Why on top of that? Or again, I mean, if you're going to tax me or put a toll, I mean, then again, just have it come back with free education, healthcare. I mean, I don't
Right.
mind.
Right.
That would be great if I knew. I would take more tolls. You know what I mean? I would just spend an extra day just going back and forth
Right.
through the toll if I knew it
Right.
was making free healthcare. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Be like,
Right.
let's
Like if
let's
we
do our
can,
duty.
I'll pay to maintain the roads if everything else is free.
You
I'm
know,
good.
I mean,
I'm
that's
good.
what I'm saying. Um, I did always appreciate that in one of those Michael Moore documentaries where he showed how all the claims end up happening in reverse, where by not universalizing all of these services, we end up paying more for them.
Right.
And it's just so, and that's sort of the illogic I was trying to, that is just always uh sort of a punch in the face where you see well, for me, when I see the level of in particular white poverty that we saw yesterday, that
Because
that
Pennsylvania is no joke, man.
I mean, this is ridiculous. And then it's like yeah. um uh and it's just like, how is this not, well, again, how is this all held together? And then that's where I just start thinking about the messaging and the narratives and all that other kind of stuff. But
Right.
so
But you did a good job of explaining it yesterday. Um, and I did appreciate. I guess we can get to some of this stuff on the run sheet. So I did appreciate before we came on, um, Mr. Barron, as as I've decided to call him. I don't know if I can quite do the first name thing yet, but Mr.
I
Barron was
only said
talking
Charles
about
because he's not here.
he he was explaining some of the history of these governmental cuts and the numbers with regard to immigration. And although I had a vague memory of Clinton, Gore, and what this project that they were on to try and cut government spending, I didn't remember the details at all. So when he mentioned the hundreds of thousands of federal workers who lost their jobs during the Clinton Gore administration, and then you mentioned like maybe we should look into that. So I did, and it's a very interesting it's an interesting dive into how these things kind of played out going back. Um, and of course, it's because the Democrats are always in competition with the Republicans to best each other with being shitty politicians, right? And so, um, but what I found, and I couldn't even get into it was such a small print that I couldn't read the whole thing. But I found the actual report that Al Gore wrote at the behest of Bill Clinton, and it's that National Performance Review. So this is the actual report that was released that gives what they found. They did like a 6-month study into government employment, customer service, general services, and spending. And this 100 and something page report was the end result. And from that report, they released, I think in the end, it was like 1,000 and something recommendations for how they could release spending. Now, I will say that this report is old enough that some of the things that it suggests are things that are currently in place that make sense to be in place. Like one of the things in the report is that like student loan and financial aid and all those things should all be like an electronic process and should all be in one place. So now, as you fill out your FAFSA, everything's in one spot, right? You fill it out, everything comes out in one place. So this is something that that was actually a recommendation that came from this report. So it's not that the whole report is filled with like these crazy ideas and things, because some of the stuff that it recommends are actually reasonable and helpful. What I did find interesting, however, is the things in the report that seemed oddly familiar to what is happening now. So, for example, towards the end, it goes through each department. So there's like recommendations for DOD, recommendations for this, for that, for whatever. And it's a lot. When I tell you it's a lot, I was like, oh, I can't be reading all of this right now. It's late. I can't do it. Sorry. So maybe one day I'll go through and actually read the whole report just for my own curiosity. But one of the recommendations for U.S. aid is to consolidate or close aid overseas missions. They should regionalize missions and staff services overseas, close all non-essential missions, and they should establish a graduation criteria for for countries receiving U.S. assistance.
Oh, wow.
So this is 1993, y'all, right? So, we're going back 30 something years. Okay. Another thing that was in here that I thought was interesting is that this report suggested that the government eliminate federal support and funding for honey.
For what?
Honey. Like, yes, honey. Like honey. Bees. The honey. Right. So the reason this stuck out to me is because I I can remember
Uh,
that there was a whole thing with the honey and the subsidy for honey and all these things, and if you've ever watched, like, so there's a documentary called The Biggest Little Farm, which is, if anybody has ever had any interest at all in how, like, all these systems work together when you're growing food, it's a great documentary for that. But bees are like a real central, they play a truly central role in all things environmental. Like,
mm,
they are central. So the idea that the government went into this whole, like, let's stop funding to make sure that we have enough honeybees because it's not really that important, was to be like, oof, okay, wow. How do we get there? um a recommendation for the education department, and I was like, of course, why wouldn't they recommend this, was that the education department use a portion of its revenue that they collect to up collections for defaulted student loans.
oh
Because
wow.
if you up the collections, you provide, like, if it provides like another step to force people to pay their student loans back. So if you increase your revenue, then, like, the whole thing was like, we can incentivize people to push them to collections to make sure that they're paying their student loans back. Department of Energy recommendation: this would allow the private sector to co-generate power at DOE labs as a means of saving money. So they were scheming to privatize energy. Um, and
Oh
also,
wow. Wow. Hold,
right. I mean, the report is fun. I mean, it was
save costs
mind blowing.
through private power cogeneration. This would allow the private sector to co-generate more power
Hmm.
as a means of saving money. DoD has
And
similar
if you,
authority.
since you're on this, scroll up a little bit to DOE 04, um, because I thought that was interesting also. Because I'd never heard of the Bonneville Power Administration. I didn't know, like, I was like, well, what is this? So it turns out that the Bonneville Power Administration is the federal power, like, company for the entire northwest region of the country, right? And so their plan in here was, we need more income, so we'll just raise the rates. So we'll just raise the rates and put all that on onto the people who need the
Allowing the
power.
power marketing administrations to recover a large portion of their operating costs through rate increases or by changing the financing of Bonneville Power Administration. Wow.
Wild. So I bring this up really because in doing the research after we had that conversation last night, I realized, a lot of these, and we've been saying it over and over again. So this is not, I'm not saying anything I've never said before, right? Like, a lot of these things stem from policies and decisions that were made by Democrats years and years ago that are just continuing on, right? They're just rolling over. So the next article, which is the reinventing government, this is the one that kind of outlines the whole thing with the employment. And what I found to be fascinating is there's some older articles that talk about this process that the Clinton Gore administration went through. And they're basically the basic review of it is that Al Gore, when he was running for president, attempted to use this strategy that they had to reduce government and to fire government workers and all these things as part of his campaign strategy. And the pushback was, now he didn't really fire all these people. Those were people that were in part on their way out from the Bush administration. I mean, it's the wild, some of the reviews on this thing are wild. But this article specifically goes into, how many federal jobs were, the federal job reduction. And I mean, it was well over 500,000 people. So it wasn't.
Oh wow! So because that's so when Barron was doing his intro, I mean that was his theme that
Yes.
that the Democrats, he wasn't saying they're better. He was just trying to remind everybody that what Trump is doing, is, to your point, has been done. And then he said he the number I remember was somewhere in the 300s of thousands of people.
Right.
When he said Gore, because he's saying Gore got, they fired more people under Gore. They deported more people. Gore deported. I mean, he's just going down the list. It was wild.
It was. It really
but you're
was
saying
wild.
in here it says
It
500,000.
was. I mean, I'd have to really look through it again to remember the number. But they
Well,
talk
here's
about how many
400.
people it was reduced by. Maybe it was over 400,000. Yeah, the elimination of 426,200 positions. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of people.
Wow.
It's a lot of people. It's a lot of people. So, and this was part of their government reduction strategy. So, so they did the study for 6 months. Then they started implementing the recommendations. And so they did a similar thing that Doge did with the offering, I think they offered like $50,000 for people to retire early, or, to take the buyout, whatever it was. And then they were closing offices. And one of the reasons that they cited for the closure of offices for these, different federal, different agencies that had offices across the country, what they were saying is essentially like this, you don't need to have an office. Like, you don't need to have a person. We're entering the computer age. You can call, you can send a note, whatever. So we don't need to have all of these offices spread all over the country for people to go and talk to people, because they can just make a phone call, or they can send, we can use computers, and we can eliminate all of these jobs and reduce the spending. So what it kicked off essentially is, what you see now. Like, if you have a question about your student loan, and you call, or you have a question about your FAFSA and you call, like, you're on hold for like 2-3 hours waiting for someone to come on and answer what could really be a very simple question, but it's something you can't figure out on your own. And it's because the goal had become to reduce the workforce so they could stop paying multiple people to be in different regional areas to be useful. And that was their way of reducing costs. So it was, it's wild. And so it's just something that I want people to consider. And, someone in the chat so this quite what Trump is doing has never been done without congressional approval. Well, what he should understand is that one of the recommendations within that report is that the president not have to go through Congress to make, changes that were needed for federal cut for cutting spending. So the reason we're in this position now is because back in the 90s, the current president, who was a Democratic president, his vice president deemed it necessary that we shouldn't have to be going through all these processes if we're trying to save money. The president
And
should be able to just sign something and make whatever cuts he deems necessary.
so then, and what the comment is suggesting is that all of Congress, or a majority that was necessary to pass all of that or implement all of that, agreed with it. So it's
Right.
just saying that more people and more party and more of the parties were complicit in what now is all being said to be brand new with Trump. So I at least, Jared, would at least be willing to concede a little bit on the difference of approach, of style,
Oh,
of
absolutely.
whatever.
I don't disagree with that at all. No.
But and maybe some would say, well, that was over a 7-year period, and Trump has already gotten rid of hundreds of thousands, or however many, a couple 100,000 in this. But my point would still be that he's building off of a set of processes that all these folks have been letting go for decades now.
Right. And I
Yeah.
didn't read through, there's a link there, and I put it on the sheet so that I could go back I could find it later if I needed it. There's a link there that actually goes through and explains like all of the recommendations and which things went through and which things didn't go through. And so I don't, I'm not trying to suggest that everything that was recommended was carried through and was done. My point is that they all work the same in the end, right? And so Trump today, being the president and the administration who is doing these things in a way that for people is like so harsh, and oh my god, it just feels so like crazy the way things are getting done. If you went through a study and went through a process and decided that you were going to fire 400 and something thousand people, and you didn't do it, and you decided you were going to fire 400 and something thousand people, 400,000 people still lost their jobs. Like, this is the part that I need people to really grasp. We're so people are so focused on how things are getting done that they are ignoring that the outcome is the same. Right? So if I end up in the hospital because you stabbed me, or I ended up in the hospital because you shot me, or I ended up in the hospital because you pushed me down a flight of stairs, I'm still in the hospital. Like, I don't understand this what seems to me to be like this real focus on who is doing what, how, right now, and why that matters. To me, the end is what matters, because in the end, it's still the same outcome being waged by people who have no interest in doing anything for the benefit of regular working people and improving their material conditions. Like, in the end, to me, that's what matters. Period. Right? In the end, that's what matters. If you are not doing things that in the end are going to have some positive impact, effect, whatever, on the regular people's material conditions, I don't want to have an argument or a conversation about who's doing what, and how they're doing it, and how it seems, and what the media's saying. I don't care. I don't care, because the end result is still the same.
Yeah. So just as we were getting ready to start the show, I was listening to another clip of a celebrity defending Obama's statement from last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was the same kind of thing that when he's saying, if I had done what they're doing now, could you imagine what would have happened, and this, that, and the third, and they keep missing the point, but that you didn't aggressively defend what people perceive as your politics in the way that the right is. So we never saw an attempt to do any of that. We never saw in real life an actual attempt by the Democratic Party to to enact and demand and impose peace and redistribution and healthcare, and all they did was repackage, to your point, what and make more pleasant the distribution of very right-wing and Republican plans. So we got Obama's imperialism and Obama, so-called Obamacare, and all of these things were just redressing of very harmful and insufficiently good policies.
Right.
So you know, it's just frustrating that I feel like, you know, uh, just watching the attempt to make folks forget that,
Right.
so that if we survive,
Right. And
they'll have us go back to that. Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of comments in the chat like, "Oh, you all always talking about, the Dems did it, and the people, they're still missing my point. My point is that if you focus solely on what this administration is doing and you fail to draw the through line from prior to this administration through this administration, what we're going to end up with is going just everybody saying, oh, well, we just have to go back to the Democrats. And then nothing changes. So, what I am imploring people to do is to stop worrying and focusing so much on who is doing what right now in the minute and how they're doing it, and to instead focus on the very real, like, systemic, policy driven problems that exist and have always existed, because people are just always trying to get the little bit that they can get without looking at the broader scheme of things, like the broader problems that exist, right? Like, people are worried about Medicaid, right? Which is a fair concern. If you are utilizing those funds and those things in order to survive, then absolutely. However, if we had free health care, would you need Medicaid? No. Right? So this is my point on these things. Like, if you have a broader system that actually takes care of people, then you don't have to fight for the small crumbs that are allotted in order for you to try and fight through and get the minimum things that you need. That's my point.
So just quickly, if I again, because I come in peace, if to those raising that criticism in the chat, if when you get to this show, this is what we're going to do, I'll even cop to it. We're only going to, I'll even, Jared will only ever criticize Democrats. But if you know that, why do you show up? If you know that that's what we do all the time, why do you continue to show up? And just so you can always say the same thing in the chat. The other thing is that, to just quickly again, do I remember this? The way I remember this is that when Obama got elected, he and the Democrats immediately removed Tom Daschle from whatever level of prominence within the party that he had, and then I think out of his seat entirely, because he was the last one saying something about universal health care. And so Obama, from almost day one, was saying to everybody, I'm not doing this. And then in time, I will develop something that the Republicans will accept, and we will convince you is and will be some form of an improvement from an already horrible situation. But if he had actually used that time to enact or demand or impose universal health care, free whatever, then yeah,
or anything, anything
you
while
know.
he had the supermajority, anything. But let's never look at that, right? And this is why it's important, because I feel like I don't just, I deeply dislike Democrats. And the reason being, like, the Republicans behave the way Republicans are expected to behave. So for me, it's like an easy shot, right? Like, I don't, people see what's happening. I don't need to point it out to you. It's very clear what's happening right now, right? This is not, none of this is like, oh no, like, oh, what are the Republicans doing? My point is that people are so busy pointing in that direction that they are literally going to cause us to just float back to nonsense. And you can already see it happening. It's all like, I can already see it all being lined up to go in this direction. And then we'll be, and this is why the fight never changes and why it always ends up being people trying to get other people to understand that when I say there's no difference between these two, it's not because I'm saying I don't see how outrageous things are, or I don't see how much, like, the way things are being presented are overwhelming and it's stressful. It's not because of that. It's because in the end, the overall systemic policy problems have existed through all of these administrations. So it's a rough, it's rough, man. It's a rough argument. It's rough.
Yep. But I think well, I don't know what other one to make. I mean, the only other one to make is it would take us back to why we have to support I don't know who will be next, but the next
Yeah,
Kamala or Biden, and I
or
can't.
whoever. Right, right. And all those things, are
Like, while
coming.
I can acknowledge there are people to my political left, and more power to them, but I just can't go that far to the right.
Right.
Like, I
I agree.
can't I can't do that.
I
So
agree. Oh, but I may go back to this thing and kind of really look at it and see what some of these recommendations were and how they all played out, because I am curious, but my eyes were tired last night. I was like, I can't read all of this right now.
but and again, as I think is important to remember. I mean, Clinton and Gore were the product of the right wing element, as it's supposed to be called, of the Democratic Party, who said
Right,
that they needed something that would defeat Reagan and
right,
Reaganism. And so they were never, again, this was the modern day or the beginning of the modern day parade of heavy propaganda around Democrats being for working people, and they just slowly gutted every single thing. So to where and by that I also mean radical and revolutionary political efforts that people were often convinced could find a home in that party.
right.
So
So the other thing that Mr. Barron talked about was the deportations.
yeah.
And I actually discovered something that was a little surprising in my rabbit hole as I went down the rabbit hole about this. But that migration policy org that does the studies on deportations has some great charts looking at who the deporters really were. Um,
Hmm.
and I gotta say, this was an eye opening. This is a really eye opening report to read. I gotta say. So one of the things that we've talked about often is this idea that the deportations that are happening right now are so extreme and unnerving, which they are unnerving, right? It's hard to see, when you read these stories about people who just get swept up and all these things that are happening. But it is important that we look at the fact that historically this country became a place where people where the government was utilizing immigration as a scare tactic. So no matter who was in power, the migrating population was the problem, and we had to figure out how to deal with them. So if you scroll down a little bit, um, there's some charts in here that just, I mean, it was something. So the table one is the immigration enforcement records. And it goes back to look at who, how many people were the whole immigration enforcement. Do you see that number under the Clinton administration? Because, bruh, almost 12.3 million people.
Oh, this one. I'm sorry. Oh,
Do
you
you
can't.
see that? Over the
Mm-hmm.
8 years?
Mm-hmm.
Almost 12.3 million people. That's a lot.
More than Bush.
More than Bush. So if you actually look at this chart, this was the thing that was funny to me. Obama don't even come close.
Oh, damn. So he was the deporter in chief compared to what?
I guess compared to the next group that came, I think because people were so vocal the first Trump administration, as he was focusing on the borders and doing all these things, that they simply went back to Obama and said, well, Obama deported way more people, right? But I don't know how many people went before Obama to look at the numbers, because them numbers is wild for deportation. That's a lot. I mean, Obama's a lot too. Like this is, I mean, over 5 million people. Like it's a lot.
But half of Bush and way less than Clinton. Right. And what were Trump's first terms?
So if you keep going down, they have they look at, sorry. Excuse me. There's a did I lose it? This one only talks about up to Obama. But the other article, which is the one from the New Yorker, has a lot of information about what's happening with Trump now and the numbers of, this 30-something thousand people that they've announced they've, deported in the past 2.5 months. So I didn't look to see. I mean, I did. I looked it up, but I didn't include the link because I was really trying to get to what Charles Barron was talking about, which was the number of people who had been deported under the prior to Trump's administration the first time around. This article is really interesting because they talk about what ICE is actually doing, which I think for me is the more beyond just looking at the numbers. It's this like wholesale just swiping together of people, right? And then just going through a process, right? But they're very opaque, like no one knows what's actually happening. So you have a group of people. This all started because there were a group of 20 something people who just disappeared. Like ICE came, they disappeared. Nobody knows where they are. They can't figure out where they were sent. They have no information. And what I find concerning is when you read the ICE like statements and reports and all these things, they talk a lot about like these at large detentions, right? So they go into a place, this is what the raid is basically. They go into a place that they claim has some number of immigrants or people who don't have the appropriate paperwork, whatever. And then they just swoop together everybody. But here's what I thought was interesting. The town, first of all, I'd like to remind everybody that the ICE czar that everyone's all up in arms about used to work for Obama. Let's just make that very, very clear.
That's right. That's right.
I just want to make sure I say that out loud and I don't forget to say it out loud. And he is being repositioned to do the same exact thing that he did under Obama. So I just wanted to put that out there. Number two, there was a raid in his town where he's from, right? There were, I think, 7 to 12 people who got caught in this raid. Within that group was a family of 4 people. It was a woman and her 3 children. Her 3 children ranged in age from elementary to high school. The town was up in arms. I think it's Sag Harbor, New York. I might be lying, or Sackett something. Anyway, let me not get distracted by that. So the town, started doing their organizing. They were marching past his house. They were, doing all the things. That family has been returned. Right? So that mother and the 3 children, even though the paperwork was still in process, right? Which is what their excuse has been for when they pull people, is if your paperwork's not done yet, then you're up for deportation if your paperwork, even if you're in the process of becoming quote unquote legalized, right? So the family has been returned. So what this tells me is what us as a population who read stories and get media reports and whatever, we think it's opaque. It is not opaque. They are very clear on who is where and where they are and what needs to happen in order to undo whatever they've done. Right? And for a lot of something else that came out in that report is there were pictures that ICE was presenting as like, these are people that we caught, but some of those people were already in detention. Right? So there are all these, there is a lot going on with what is being presented as this very like outrageous process of deportation that's happening that I think is very much more created by the media and what is being presented by the media that doesn't quite fit with what's actually happening. And I think it's in part to get people to feel the way people are feeling about the deportations. I hope that made sense. Like I
mean, it makes sense to the extent. Well, yeah, I just haven't read any of this, so I don't know. So yeah, I think it. Yeah, but I think I'm following.
It's just it's just more to make sure that people understand that everything is about propaganda and media presentation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as people are outraged, rightfully, because they see people and things that are happening to folks with regard to deportations and immigration and ICE and all of these things, to be mindful that you are only getting as much of the story as the media and the government
Right.
want you to get.
And I think so. I saw a couple of these comments here about numbers dropping because people, immigration rates change during one administration to the other. Uh, Jared saying that the report is a bit complex. It conflates some different things. Removals increased dramatically under Obama. Border apprehensions decreased.
Yeah. I
So
mean,
I know that there's a
and people should look
yeah.
at the chart because
Hmm.
it details like who was returned, who was the, because return technically means like you told them you need to leave. So they chose to self deport, right? So there's a
Hmm.
number of things that get pulled together in those numbers when you look at it. But, you know,
But
I don't
again,
know that
for
it
me,
changes my argument of this has been a long standing process in
no,
this
but I
country.
mean, and again, I mean, it goes back for me to, I mean, even I remember learning at least of the existence of its existence. Not saying that, with any levels of expertise, but of the Bracero program during and after the Second World War, of again. Uh, one party to the next manipulating immigration numbers based on labor needs. And you know again, I stood out with other people at one of these many marches in DC years ago protesting Clinton and Gore doing NAFTA and CAFTA. All of this is what does gives imposes certain jobs at certain wages on other parts of the hemisphere, undercuts labor in this country, and pits all of these communities against one another. And again, it goes from one to the next. So it isn't to say that there are no differences. It is not to say that there's not some variations in how these things are enacted. But I mean, we also remember when Kamala Harris was what did she say? Where was she when she popped up after being disappeared for a while and
Oh,
told
and
people
she's
don't
yeah.
come?
Yeah. I I don't even remember. Yeah.
And then but then and then only I because I watched this documentary about it and I've been to the to part to that region, that province in Panama, Darien, excuse me now. And so they're talking about how both parties, including when the Democrats, when they have these fake lockdowns on the border with Mexico, all they do is push people through the Darien Pass and other more dangerous,
Hmm.
hostile, violent routes, but the numbers are going way up through that particular pathway. So the point being, it's but it will be used at one point or another to promote someone as being tough on immigration because there will be some overt, loud agreement or disagreement with Mexico in that border, knowing full well many more others are going to come through other routes. Knowing full well that you want them to and you need them to undercut the labor in this country,
Right.
and then be used as a mechanism to fund and finance more policing, surveillance, redistribution of people's attention when it comes to who and who does not have a job. I
Hmm.
mean, it's just beautiful. And it abuses all these people from Central and South America that you don't care about anyway. So, and all them poor white folks that I end up seeing up here in Pennsylvania.
Facts. Facts. And it's just,
Wow.
I don't know. I feel like I feel like we've missed a real opportunity in 2024 to further the third party base. Um, and I have many thoughts on like how that happened, but it was, instead of people going third party, they just didn't come out, right? And so there has to be, that's something that needs really to be examined, right? Like, how is it that happened, that you couldn't get a large enough group of the population to come out and support something that existed? And let me
Do
not,
you
I
remember?
recognize the media's
Sorry.
role in that also. No, 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 real quick. I recognize the media's role in that also, right? Like, a lot of people just didn't know that there was another option. Like, you think there's two choices. I'm not going with either of those. I'm just not going. But I do think that's something that needs to be kind of really looked at.
Well, I was going to ask if you remember. If I remember, the way I remember it, you were the first one to you brought a clip from BAI, um, of Raz Baraka talking about the need for the Democratic Party to rebrand itself in media. That was the only reason it was struggling at some point in Kamala's campaign or something like that. And they understood, similar to what you're raising, that they had a branding issue, but they were able to rely on a commercial media environment to 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 try to engage that battle. The only problem is they offered nothing. So
Right.
all of their audience, to your point, were like, this is whack. I'm
I'm
not
just not going to bother. Right.
I'm not going to bother. Now, this is why it's always been my issue with the so-called alternative and underground press, that we haven't done, to my point about the Democrats and Obama, we haven't done enough to organize ourselves around an electoral strategy that we would push to our collective audiences in the way the right, and I get they're more well funded, et cetera, resourced, et cetera, but the white conservative right wing uh, undercurrent of media that gets very little attention but has enormous impact. We don't organize ourselves that way. So more of us, I think, because, and increasingly, I admit I feel this way, and I've been guilty of this too. More of us feel better because of the politics we may truly believe or hold, that we feel better railing against even the idea of voting as not being militant or revolutionary enough, as opposed to trying to develop militant uses of the vote to the extent that I'm not creating some sort of uh, unsolvable contradiction there. But so that's why be, that's the only way we can magnify to do what it is I think you are rightly calling out needs to be done, to have a unified voice and message, and that we use one as opposed to, and that way I think we would get, again, I continue to hold that this is a great way to recruit people into more left politics, but also for people who are already claiming to be on the left to find ways to work together to do something. So
Right.
I think, again, this is not my proposal because I think the vote is the solution, but I think we need to find more different ways to engage and show that we can do something together.
Yeah. So I don't know.
So that's why I
It's
like that,
always been
like
my conundrum.
where we even started again was with you and I wanting to have sustained critical conversations about alternative approaches to electoral politics.
Yeah.
And going back, I even happened to see one the other day, to my old commentaries for Black Agenda Report, or even before that outlets like Democracy Now, when I was with the Real News, I felt, these important alternative outlets never seem to want to or find a way to sustain conversations outside of election seasons with so-called alternative third parties, in promotion of them, in promotion of the idea that we use the interim moments to build some differences, so that during each election cycle we don't just get browbeaten with, well, we didn't do anything in the interim and therefore we got to da 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 da. Well,
Right.
help us by inviting people to your. So my last point here would be, just to everybody, encourage your favorite media outlets to invite third party discussion.
Right.
I don't know.
And it's a problem, and it's difficult because the minute you do that, so much of the country is propagandized to believe that the Democrats are better. That if you have a big following, you likely have that following because you don't push back too much on that idea. And the minute you push back on that idea, you run the risk, right, of
Of people
losing
not
your
coming to your
following.
birthday party.
Right.
My bad.
But you're right. You're right. So
They
now you
wouldn't
have,
come to my
so,
birthday party, Renee, because I
right,
wouldn't vote for Kamala.
right. I mean, I literally have somebody who does not talk to me anymore because I was like, eh, why are we playing with this? Right. And so it's it's so difficult because,
Mhm.
as I've also said multiple times, I understand that for many people, this platform and voice and all of these things is how you eat, right? Like, that's how you pay your bills, whatever have you. And it is very difficult to expand and to make a profit if you are really consistently just speaking truth to whatever is happening in the moment, because you're going to lose the people who, you know, don't want to hear that.
And
It's tricky.
lose
It's
that money
tricky.
too. Although I am interested if there are any representatives of Act Blue who want to attempt to get Saturdays with Renee to support the next Democratic Party nominee. I would be very interested. I'm just curious what that number looks like. What is that? What is that? What does that check look like? How many zeros to get us to support Kamala's second run? I just curious. Just want to see what the
Oof.
send me an email with you know what? Send me a copy of an invoice you sent to whoever, and let us see again what. I'm just curious what
I just want to see what it looks like.
you know. Thank
um
you, Latif. Latif is absolutely correct.
there we go. And so
Support the
this also
platform.
leads me to this 50-51 thing, which is, I almost couldn't sleep last night because I fell down a rabbit hole trying to trace something, and I was like, go to bed, Renee. Come up out of here and go to bed. So if you recall, on
Oh
April
boy.
5th, I mentioned that there were two different groups that were running, these protests and rallies. And as always, the hands off was co opted, and it became, hands off NATO, which is still wild to me that that's where that went. Um, and then you also had your protests that are that were really focused on supporting the people of Palestine and pushing for the end to the genocide and the illegal occupation. And so this post came out about the 5051 groups and what they were actually doing. And part of the reason that this became a focus was because at one of those 5051 rallies, protests, marches, whatever it was, there was a black man who they called the police on him because he was selling, I don't know, whatever he was selling on the side, or I don't know if it was food or gear or whatever have you. And so I read this and I was like, well, this is interesting. But the last screen of it talks about who is really behind the 5051. This is, so he was selling shirts. So this is what happened. So you'll see on the last page, it says that the 5051 website, if you go, sorry, it's not, oh, I guess it's not the last page. Go back one. It's in the middle.
Oh, this one? Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it shows that the email address for additional information is at Divisible. That's what that little green square in the middle is. So
at indivisible.org.
Indivisible, okay. Right. So for folks that don't know Indivisible, that is a Democratic support group, right? Like their whole thing is like, we're indivisible and, you know, we're going to run to save democracy. So I found this to be very interesting. So I went to the 5051 website because I was curious about, well, what else, like, what is the website talk about? And it's so funny that John wrote this because this is exactly what I found. So John wrote, 5051's national leadership is a brick wall. You can't find out anything on who they are, but it's not a member organization. They're just a bunch of politically incoherent and random people. And he is not wrong, right? So when you go to the 5051 website, it gives you 4 groups that are like I guess who they work with, I guess. I don't know. It's very, did I not put the links on here? Did I delete them by mistake? Hold on. Let me find it because this is.
Wait a minute. You know what? Hold on a second. Are they? Oh, okay. Okay.
No,
my bad.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
And this is. I thought I had this in there, but maybe I didn't. Maybe I didn't drop it. I'll drop it into the private chat so you don't have to search for it. So this is the 5051 website. And exactly as John just indicated, it doesn't really give you a whole lot of information, right? But yeah, click on the partners because these are the groups that are supposedly, I guess, working together as 5051. So, I mean, with the exception of the Voices of Florida, which seems to be a org that has like some historical standing, they have actual people, they seem to be doing things and it's not like recent. All of these things are like brand new, right? Like Voice Unheard is just started like 2 months ago, right? But the one that I thought was very interesting, and this is the rabbit hole that I fell in, y'all, so you're gonna have to follow me along for a minute. So Political Revolution, click on Political Revolution. This is, I mean, what I tell you, I was like, what is happening? So there's this whole website built for this Political Revolution group that's supposed to be a PAC, right? That is supposedly like working on running candidates and all these things. But when you go to try to donate, it sends you to a page that says we're not allowed to collect donations right now, which I thought was very interesting. And maybe I'm trying to.
Oh, wait a minute. I don't know if this is an update. Wait, it says, oh, it's via Act Blue. It says
Right.
donate via Act Blue.
So, so it's up now. So when I went to this page
Boom.
yesterday, it was down. You couldn't make donations.
But Act Blue is I mean, they're explicitly
Democratic.
to get
Right.
Democratic Party people elected.
Right.
They'll claim progressive Democrats, but you know.
Right. So the other thing that I thought was interesting, and now I'm wondering if
That's what I'm trying to see if we can get that check. Trying to get that bag.
always, I can't mess with you. So the other thing that I thought was interesting is so me being me, falling down the rabbit hole. So now I'm like, well, who are these people behind this group? Like who is this pack, the political revolution? So I started doing my search, and I found something very interesting, and I'll drop that in the chat so folks can see it, because this was the last, this is something that's in there from the end of last year, which made me wonder if this is why they weren't collecting donations. So they're under review for not submitting their appropriate paperwork to the FEC.
Oh, wow.
So this group has been in existence for a few years now, but they collect they have very little money that's being collected. So I don't know who they're running or how they're running anything. And they seem to be in a thing with the FEC for not filing their appropriate documents. And then I look at the name and I'm like, okay, well, who's this person, Glorianne? You can't, what I tell you, she exists as like an IT person. Like she has some IT podcast through LinkedIn or something, from what I could tell.
Wait, whose name?
So at the top, the treasurer for the political revolution is Glorianne Sahi. I can't find. I mean, I assume that person really exists, but
oh damn!
To me, if you have an entire website that's collecting money and claiming to be running candidates and all these things, like, how can you not find a person's name that is like attached to something? Am I making sense?
The name I find on LinkedIn,
right, is an IT,
right, cloud operations manager,
right, for
at
an IT
Trimble.
company.
I don't know what that is. Women engineers. Is this the same person?
Maybe.
I'm not just gonna put this.
Yeah, no. I mean, I'm not. But it's just, the whole thing is just wild to me. So I'm very confused about who these people actually are. Sorry, y'all, the dog's going crazy upstairs. Who these people actually are. The No Voice Unheard group it's like a similar thing. They've got like a really nice put together website. But when you dig in to try and find something, these people are all like it's somebody who literally was like, well, I voted and then I couldn't believe Trump won and I realized that I had to do something. And then we sat together with with paper and we were talking and we found 50,501 marches, which seems like odd to me, but whatever. And so we did. So it's like all these people who are all Democrats pulling together and putting together really pretty websites to
It's just the
convince
new
people.
way. I'm sorry, my bad. Yeah,
No, go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go
No,
ahead. Go ahead.
I cut you off when you were saying what I made it what you were gonna what you I
You're
think were
probably
gonna
about to
say.
say what I'm about to say, so go for it.
Well, I just a new way to get us all back to do what we've been complaining about, and that to the point of to the previous commenter that we will always talk about that this fraudulent rebranding of the Democratic Party is a solution.
Right.
So so just be forewarned, everybody. If you look, I mean, you know what I'm saying. Go, you could look. I was listening to some of it in the car on the satellite radio thing yesterday. You could listen all day long. MSNBC got you covered on all the things Trump and them are doing wrong, and all the reasons why things would have been better if Kamala had been elected. So, like, you have a very well funded, and CNN's not far behind them. So, you have like two very well funded operations that give you 24 hours a day content where you can get all you need to hear about, how much better things would be if Mama Kamala had won. And I like that we have a little bit of room carved out in these internet streets. Salute to Black Liberation Media and others who for a little bit of some other kinds of conversation. Exactly, Mamala.
Mm.
So
yeah. So I mean, so that seems to be. I guess that's the plan now. Is we're gonna, because now it seems like this 50-51 group every few weeks is going to be doing these these national protests, and in the end it's all going to be really about like marching people right back to the Democratic Party. That's the end goal, that's the plan. So I think it's important to for people to understand that you should just peel the curtain back just a little bit to see if you can find out some more information about these folks. So
one quick challenge that I would because as many and I increasingly expect more, and it's been increasing and I expect it to continue, for those who, a couple of things quickly. What would, for those who disagree with what we're saying here, and who, and specifically not to the left of those who say we need something more militant beyond voting, which is, I think, a separate discussion, but to those who would be advocating some other, return or other form of engagement with the Democratic Party, are there any policies that you are going to attach your vote to, specifically, that you want to see the Democratic Party to enact? And or is it just are you just good with Biden is peak level what we can expect as human beings in this country? And then maybe beyond that a little bit, what is your strategy to radicalize the Democratic Party?
I'd like to hear that. I'm always curious. Like, when people get annoyed with me for my take on this and say, like, well, you have to work within. I won't, I'd like for people to explain what part of anything that has happened in the past, let's say 50, 60 years, gives anyone the impression or understanding that they can do anything within the Democratic Party that's actually going to push them towards caring about regular working people. Because I haven't seen a clue at all that that's even possible. But I'm open to listen to it. Like, I'm open to listen to it. Sure.
So yeah,
Speaking of supporting the Speaking of supporting the Democrats, your boy Sharpton. So his new DEI focus. I don't know if you've seen this yet.
I don't think so. Is this the?
Is
This
PepsiCo.
is. Oh no, 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 no.
PepsiCo. PepsiCo. So now,
Hold on.
yeah.
Reverend Al Sharpton National Action Network launch boycott of Pepsi Company. Well, damn. In a fiery address that concluded the 2025 National Action Network annual convention, civil rights leader Reverend Al Sharpton called on Black America to rise up economically by turning its collective purchasing power into a tool of protest. From the
Mm-hmm.
Sheraton, New York Times Square podium, Sharpton announced NAN will launch a national boycott of PepsiCo for retreating from the diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives under political pressure. Oh, wow. Here we go. Dr. King taught us economic security and opportunity underpin all of our freedoms. Black consumers cannot tolerate the spinelessness of corporations like Pepsi that are willing to turn their backs on us based on which way the wind blows. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Again, how many more Dr. King references?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh no, Dr. King fought for National Action Network, made a promise across Washington to use our buying power to fight back. Wait a minute, did my Google alert fail me? I gotta check my email. This should have showed up in my email.
Yeah, you'll have to look for this one. Because this came out what I tell you, I fell down. This is what happens when we don't have a guest, y'all, just so you know. When we don't have a guest, somewhere between Wednesday and Friday, I fall down like 20 rabbit holes trying to figure out what kind of stuff we should talk about during the show. And so I I started because we were having this conversation on Black capitalism and DEI and all these things. I started, just searching to see like what was new. So this was the new thing that popped up, and so we're adding PepsiCo to the list, which okay, like okay, like I don't even know what to say about that. But here is something very very interesting. So next to the link for this article, Jared, on the sheet is a
Oh,
link for a directory, the FOTM Global
mhm.
Directory. Have you ever heard of this thing?
Nope.
Okay, neither have I. So, so apparently, one of these spin-off things from sorry, y'all. I know people get mad, but this is just so absurd. I was like, people are really investing time and energy in this.
World's first conscious spending platform. Black
Bruh.
spend. What is this saying?
It's a ticker to tell you what you're supposed to boycott and how much money the company is losing and who's boycott. Bruh. Who you have to boycott, who you have to boycott. And then you can pay.
Oh, but you can pay, of
But
course.
you can pay.
Of course.
You can.
And who is
Y'all.
this?
So his name is Charles. Hold on. Yeah, the Black Wall Street ticker. Yeah, yeah, that's the name of it. Um, um, it's Charles something, and him and Sharpton are working together to make sure that the people are fully engaged in, you know,
Oh, more Dr.
conscientious
King quotes.
capitalism.
Jesus Christ. Oh, with 7 trillion in spending power,
Mm-hmm.
we are redirecting money towards who is the we with the 7? It's 7 trillion now?
I guess it's everybody, all the allies and the black. Look,
So all the colored folks and their friends
right.
will pay this man to learn the plan,
and to monitor and to
to
get
monitor, and
notifications
to
so that you
know.
know when there's somebody new that you need to
Oh my
boycott
God.
or boycott. And I mean,
Oh
there's some
my
wild
God.
stuff. There's some wild stuff. It's wild. It really is. I mean, it's and the
Can,
ticker, I'm dropping the link in the chat. And the ticker is what did it for me. Cause I was like, y'all really took the time to build a ticker to tell people who they should boycott versus boycott. And
shift the $7 trillion in spending to empower our communities.
Mhm.
But in what way does that, and how, in what way?
Well, I mean, I guess it could be similar to, the 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 Black Project 2020. I shouldn't laugh, y'all. I'm sorry. The Black Project 2025. There's also a link to that so that we can track like how we should be moving our money properly so that we can
Not the
save.
Project 2025 that just folded. I thought she just folded
Oh,
it.
it folded. Oh yeah. It folded. It definitely folded.
All right, so we empower our spending through a voter wallet to observe the Black Wall Street ticker. By proactively supporting businesses that align with our community values through boycotting, we can reduce the need for reactive boycotts over time. Fill in the gaps and add merchants, track your spending. So to redirect the 7 trillion in spending to empower our communities. How does it empower if you're just buying from Coke and not Pepsi?
And none of that. So the thing that I think infuriates me the most about this site is none of it actually explains how any of this has a real impact.
Wait, Renee, but it says, how does it work?
Yeah, how does it work?
The digital voter wallet helps you discover businesses that are friends of the movement, FOTM.
Mm-hmm.
These are the companies that are committed to eliminating discrimination and disparities in practices. You vote with your dollars. So when you make a purchase from FOTM businesses, you're sending a powerful message. And then you can track it in real time. Now, do you understand, Renee, how it
I can't stand you.
is really very clear?
I mean, how awful is this though?
Oh man. Can I just show you, I just have to do this. I'm sorry, everybody. But if you please go to the man's book, Where Do We Go from Chaos or Community? Just as the Negro cannot achieve political power in isolation, neither can he gain economic power through separatism. While there must be a continued emphasis on the need for Blacks to pool their economic resources and withdraw consumer support from discriminating firms, we must not be oblivious to the fact that the larger economic problems confronting the Negro community will only be solved by federal programs involving billions of dollars. I could go on, but this is what Dr. King actually said.
Right.
He criticizes however much we pool our resources and buy Black, this cannot create the multiplicity of new jobs and provide the number of low-cost houses that will lift the Negro out of the economic depression caused by centuries of deprivation. Neither can our resources supply quality integrated education. All of this requires billions of dollars, which only an alliance of the liberal labor civil rights forces can stimulate. In short, the Negro's problem cannot be solved unless the whole of American society takes a new turn towards a greater economic justice. By the way, this line here, I've always ignored or paid under amount of attention to, but some other people have been making for 100 years this argument that when you encourage Black people to buy Black and support Black businesses, or even worse, what we were just covering here, just encourage them to support other white major corporations versus this major white corporation, you're taking Black people out of this unified labor effort, the liberal labor civil rights. So again, I'm not saying that this satisfies my political will or even Dr. King's. But when he keeps getting his name dragged, he was pointing out that you cannot do this. What Sharpton and them are doing now, using his name, is in advocating that Black people remove themselves from the labor struggle and support exclusively this fantasy that their dollar has this power that it doesn't have. So now again, you could say Jared is wrong, you could say King is wrong, but you can't say King said something else. And they
Right.
just keep it's so to quote,
Yeah,
well, Skip said it right. It's diabolical. Shit
it
is
is diabolical.
diabolical.
Yeah, and we talked about it. We talked about
Golly.
it a little bit yesterday, and I brought it up. Like, the dude Russ that called in, because I listen to WBAI all the time. Russ always calls in. Russ is a frequent caller in to WBAI. So the minute he said this is Russ, I was like, oh boy, what's coming? And so, his question about reparations versus getting basic social systems in place, I think my answer was also reflective of that paragraph, right? Like, if if we really concentrated on everyone getting all of the things that everyone needed, then you could actually provide reparations to the people who are able to track, like, their lineage to get some specific thing that's due to their family. And I'm not opposed to that, but getting that without getting all of the social structures so that everybody can get all of the things that they need, to me, is not like a logical step. Now that could just be me, but I'm just saying. I really hope Yip is joking with that. I think they have to be just joking. That has to be a joke. That's a
Well,
joke.
I don't know if Yipper's joking or not, but there is this ongoing controversy over, and I believe, and it's also been, I've heard it said both from academics and the activist community. I've also believe I read there's an attempt in the FBI documents about King to argue that King did not write, in fact, that book as much as it was written by Stanley Levinson, the Jewish communist advisor, who I do also know had some very arrogant things to say about King and his relationship to King to my godfather, Mr. Porter. I have to dig that story back out or invite Mr. Porter back on to tell it. So I know
Okay,
Yipper
I feel better.
is joking, but there is actually this attempt to deny that these were actually King's politics or words, or at least words, if not politics. But the point is, that's the book that's on record in his name and does comport with everything else that we've been learning lately about him, or more increasingly lately about him. So, but yeah, no, I get it. And what was the other one that just? Oh, and yes, Kenyatta. I would like to think that the there's a direct connection between what I'm saying is happening here and on the continent. But yeah, so
Yeah.
that's just gross though. What you were sharing with us though, that was
Sorry. I,
just
listen, once I fell, and it's about to get worse, but once I fell
nah
down, yeah, sorry. It's about to get worse. But once I fell
nah.
down the hole, I was like, this is like, I don't even understand how these things keep happening. So also on our little cheat sheet here
Mhm.
is your boy,
Oh yeah. Oh
your
man. Which
boy,
one? Which one am
John
I?
Hope Bryant.
I know, but which of
So
these
I,
links?
I don't even when I tell you I don't even know really where to start. I'm so thrown off by this. But okay, so go to the Operation Hope AIL P3. That's it's like the third column.
Yeah. Oh man, this
So
boy. And I think I saw him on another He's been making the rounds again, or he just staying out in these podcast
Yeah. I
suites?
mean, listen, I'm gonna give John Hopeless Bryant some credit, right? The brother gets around. He's like a rash. It's wild. I mean, he gets around. Um so so this is a new
AI literacy pipeline to prosperity. Oh my God.
welcome, y'all.
Oh my God. Artificial intelligence is rapidly impacting and changing every aspect of our lives and economy, providing the maximum social, educational, humanitarian, and financial benefits. Equitable access to education and training in AI is essential. This is an Atlanta-based initiative designed to give underserved populations the tools to participate meaningfully in the AI economy. Wow. Wow.
So
Look at
that
all of these
picture,
well-dressed Black folks, and who's
yep.
this? Who's this conspicuous?
Well, this is so if you go to the people of color tech, the people of color in tech link, that article
Oh, on the spreadsheet. Oh,
on the
I'm still looking
spreadsheet.
at this page. I'm just fascinated. I'm
Oh,
just.
because
Oh,
I
look at
mean, this is it's fascinating. It's
Renee. Look how happy
fascinating.
this person is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe we're on the wrong side of things here. Look how happy
Maybe,
that who would want to step on that
maybe
person's
John Hopeless
happiness.
Bryant he's got it covered. So so
All
this is what
right,
I
so
mean
this
when I say
is
like he's able, he's able to get around.
Operation Hope launches AI literacy program for underserved community. Again, people, we please go back, please check. And I know it wasn't Renee this time. I won't make that mistake, but please check the Max Haven interview about financial literacy, because this is it should read colonialism. When you see this word, it should say colonialism.
So
Oh
this
man.
this project, this AI, so we had to start with the AI LP3 thing so that people could understand where this is going. So that is being used to launch a program at Georgia State, right? To teach underserved communities how they can utilize AI in their pursuit of financial literacy.
Golly. Oh man.
Can't make it up. You can't make it up. So there's your boy. That's, do you see the picture? It's the same. It's the same group. That's where that picture's from. Is the announcement of this program.
I mean, honestly, I don't even know. I don't even know what to say. This is so now. It's again. We're still talking about the digital divide. They've been saying this for 25 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And wow,
Mm-hmm.
this is going to reduce economic inequality
Yep.
by bridging the digital divide and
Yep.
increase diversity in AI talent.
Yep.
Well, I don't even know what to say. It's about to be great.
I mean, it's just
It's about to be great.
he really is a bad penny. Like you just can't get rid of him. I've never seen it, it's the wildest. And so I'm just gonna keep every now and again like looking to see what other new things they've come up with. Because if you look at, like, I actually went to reading the report that AILP whatever thing produced to show like all of their work from 2024. Um, and this, I just can't, I just don't understand. I don't understand how this is actually being promoted as something that is going to be beneficial to the larger Black community in pursuit of liberation. Like, I just can't.
I mean, I don't. So I definitely would want to learn more about the specifics of this program, but it makes. So first of all, it's the we already know the impact that it claims is not real.
Right.
So that, but the just going back over what I remember about his career, he has been from the uprisings after Rodney King was beaten. He has been, that is Bryant, been finding ways to marshal the needs and the struggle of Black people to get white investment. So with every new phase of this just makes perfect sense. AI is the new craze. There are a lot of there is a lot of investment going into AI, from defense to the private community, so there's just a lot of money. Right. So it makes sense to say, and for them to find ways to partner to maintain this financial literacy mythology, Black capitalists, whatever. Right. To say, hey, here's we'll give you money, and he can certainly develop a pitch for them and say, listen, you need some Blackness, I know we're not doing DEI anymore, but you need an outlet for this. Give me some money. I will pitch this, and we'll train people. And somehow, I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure there's some.
I'd like to upset you a little more before we close.
Oh, nice. Okay, so, yeah, please.
Why not? Highlighted box, I wanted to make sure I sent you to the right thing, is his AI council that he's put together, like the information.
Oh, well, that's good. That's good. We need you.
So, so they're they're working on,
once you have a council,
on making the rules, the things that we really need to look at.
It's the AI ethics. Oh, AI ethics council. Yes.
But scroll down to who's on his council.
Sam Altman, who is the CEO and founder of, oh my God, of OpenAI, of course. So hey, listen. Because he shares a concern about bias and discrimination in AI, yet also believes AI and will overwhelmingly and positively impact society, and that AI will create new economic opportunities for people of color and other underserved communities. OpenAI was founded with a mission to ensure that artificial general intelligence benefits all of humanity. Wow.
Yeah.
Got HBCUs involved.
Keep scrolling, because we have pictures, and there's another name there that I think is gonna amuse you. So there's a screen that shows who's currently on the council.
Oh my goodness!
You're about to get to it. You're about to get to it.
There's a lot of ethics, intended outcomes.
Their first year.
Pipeline for literacy. Sam Altman.
Yep, because the person who invented AI is going to be all about making sure it's ethical.
Oh, of course. Oh, they got everybody in this joint. Andy Young, Van Jones. Oh my goodness, this is beautiful. Reid Hoffman. Oh my goodness.
You're welcome.
That's beautiful. President of Spelman. Wow. Wow. Oh, this is perfect. Why does this picture look like an AI picture? For some reason.
Isn't it something?
Van Jones, Sam Altman. Well, look, look, you said you were going to upset me. Couldn't be happier. I feel more confident and secure that the future is just, exactly. Oh, it's a picture. I meant, this is the one I meant to grab. No Kathy Hughes. I don't know. Maybe did Kathy upset somebody? I feel like this would have been perfect for her.
It's wild, isn't it?
Well, I'm sure he'll be in a commercial at some point for it. We we'll I'm sure we'll hear from Mike soon. That is Renee. Yeah. Renee. Boy. I tell you what.
Welcome to my rabbit holes, y'all. Welcome to my rabbit holes. I mean, there's just so much. There's so much. I didn't know. I actually didn't know until last night that the Black Project 2025 got shut down. That was a interesting watch. Her explaining why she was shutting it down, and that people can get a partial refund if they made a donation, which I'm not even going to go there, but okay.
Wow.
And then I don't know if you remember a while back, I had sent you that sister sit-in thing, and that's now been shut down for whatever reason. I don't know. So there are all these these very unclear attempts to pretend like they're galvanizing Black people towards something legitimate, utilizing Black capitalism, and they seem to be failing. So I don't know if I should be happy about that or like I don't know.
Well, it's I want to get I mean, the tendency is I want to get excited about it, but it's just I'm still sometimes amazed at the ability for these things to rebrand and reframe themselves.
Right.
So it's in other words, how will the collapse be explained? Right. And and then what will the response will be encouraged is often somehow a rebrand of the same ideas.
Right.
But yeah, that's listen, it's Andy Young. I mean, again, salute to Jared Loggins and Andrew Douglas for that Prophet of Discontent book, and a very quick and short and powerful read on the real politics of Dr. King. And Andy Young, you're a capitalist. I'm not. Right. And to see that people will still, and it would be cool if Andy Young and others would say, look, King and I we didn't agree. He called me a capitalist, and and I am. And and if I would, that's one thing, but to constantly to trade on the name and the history and the legacy, and then for Sharpton and them to literally be quoting him inaccurately, that's just wow. That's just crazy. That's just crazy. It's crazy.
It is. So that's
Renee, anything you want to announce, or any I don't know, folks, listen, please like, share, subscribe, support the platform. Please definitely support the Patreon. All the links are in the show description. Make sure you have the bell rung so you don't miss whenever the channel produces and drops a new segment or video. And I am not familiar with Philip Scott. I'm familiar with the Africa Diaspora News Channel, so maybe I'm familiar and didn't know, but by name.
I was going to say the name doesn't look familiar, but I watched the channel, so I'm sure it's just me not paying attention to the names. So
yeah. So, but
so next week we have Michael Sampson come in from the NAARPR to talk about their organizing efforts. So looking forward to that. And excellent. Then the week after is Todd's book with Ntune. So
Roosevelt Franklin.
That's right.
Dark Side of Sesame Street. So, right? Did I get that right?
Right.
Todd is a wild dude, man.
So all
right. Well, listen, big shout out to you, Renee, and thanks everybody for coming through. Please do like, share, subscribe. As always, peace only if you're willing to fight for it, and catch you next time right here with more
Saturday
with Renee.